as we walk it through.
Yes.
Looks like, Marcia, you were all set.
I'm ready. Thank you, guys. I love these calls. This is so wonderful. I feel like I'm getting to know you, and I'm just already inspired. So thank you for your energy and the time you're putting in. Makes so much difference. For communication profile, I'm going to show you from slide sorter view, as we did last week for orientation, the high level view of the whole module, so you can see it in its chunks. Feel free to be ready with questions afterwards. Really want to help understand. This is one of those big modules. It's a meaty module. It has close to 4 hours allocated for teaching DISC. It absolutely is the poured foundation of the training house that you're building. So it's really important to understand it, see the places where you can have fun, see the places where you really need to teach at a deep level and engage your folks. Okay, so I'm going to escape from that and go to the DISC deck. The name of the module is Communication Profile. As you teach it for a while, we sort of shorthand by calling it DISC, but it is a communication profile. There are 4 learning objectives. This is not necessarily organized in exactly the flow of the learning objectives, but it is generally. We start with me, understanding me, then we move to understanding DISC in terms of others. We talk about how to communicate with those who are not like me, and then we move to style flexing. How do I shape my communication so that others can hear me? We'll get to that in a moment. So we start, of course, with that key behavior, not personality. And the first few slides are really explaining what DISC is, what it's about, what it means. There will be at least one person in your class who has never seen, heard, or done DISC. This training, this teaching is designed for that level. One of the challenges you will have is that you have studied this, you took the class, and in many ways you'll feel like, yeah, they get that. They don't. Take the time. That's why there are slides laid out here very intentionally to explain behavior, personality, and an exercise, the idea of nature and nurture, the onion slide, which we fortunately, because of Heather's wonderful work, we've got a nice foundation for. You'll want to spend time on that slide. Again, the idea of choice. And then moving the development of DISC slide, spend time, don't spend a lot of time. The whole purpose of that slide is simply to establish the scientific credibility of the instrument. That's all. So don't worry about researching William Marston or John Geyer. You don't need to be an expert on that. There's lots of info in the notes, but this is not a critical slide other than establishing credibility. If you have a lot of C's in your class, you will want to spend a little more time than your class is all D's and I's, if that makes sense. Slide 8, key concept anchor point slide. Spend time here. It's all about the idea of we're not about trying to force people. You can't anyway. You're going to talk about this information on this slide throughout the next 3 days. Then we move to giving a quick overview that DISC, the D, the I, the S, the C, are our behavior tendencies. And this is an overview. Some are tasks, some are people. That need like air is very distinct. Then we want to give some caveats. It's about behavior tendencies. It's not about stereotyping or manipulating. Really important setup slides. Okay, and the no bad profiles. I've had women particularly who are high Ds sometimes will feel like that's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. There are no bad profiles. The world needs you to be who you are. So that whole setup in order then to share the report. And the report is simply understanding me. Great question. Why is profile 2-1? Because it's our natural style. We don't necessarily say to them, you know, this is the questions or the choices you did not make. They're likely not ready to understand at that level here. It's really just to focus in on what is my wake up on a Saturday morning with the cat. What is my behavior going to look like? Profile 1, again, persona, or that mask, that persona we put on for work, the way we believe we need to work. So we go through the report. This section, guys, from slide 13 through slide 20, take time here. Do not rush. When we look at the teaching arc, you'll note that this is a disruption zone. This is an anxiety bar. Folks are looking to understand. People move at different rates. Your D's are going to want to go faster. Don't let them push. The S's and C's are processing. This is scary information. This is confidential information. Take time. We're going to spend some more time in St. Louis walking through some of the information behind the DISC tool. So I just encourage you to understand, we're looking at the report. We talk about the report in a safe space, just me with the person next to me, as I feel comfortable. Again, a confidential report. Debrief that if it makes sense and based on timing. The key here is for folks to talk to others and be able to surface any concern or reactions they may have that they don't share with you. In those same slides through slide 20, the partner facilitator should be looking and seeing if there are indications of concern, confusion. Both of you should be walking around and being near folks. So if they have questions about their report, they don't want to bring up in the big group because it's personal, but they will allow you to stand next to them and ask you a question. What does this mean? This doesn't make sense to me. Okay? Very personal part of this, very one-on-one. Give it the time, give it the attention. Once we finish the report, then we're ready to move into really what is the teaching, and frankly, a little more fun. Now that I understand me, I have a context for understanding the D, the I, the S, the C, and the instrument as it relates to the people around me. So we move into explaining that, we talk about the opposites, and then we go deep in the strengths and tendencies of each of the four behavior tendency areas. We do what Stephanie just described for us. We do an exercise, stand up, go to the side of the rooms with the D's, the I's, the S's, the C's, plan a vacation, do our self-check. And as we finish that, we're ready then to talk about how do I know somebody, what somebody else is. I don't know how to talk to someone if I don't recognize what their tendency might be. So we talk about the ask and the tell and do a little bit of a dive into the D, the I, the S, the C, and where they fall. We have another role play, which is fun. Have fun with this. Know your animations, very important in debriefing, that you don't just throw the answers, but instead, why did you think that was an S? Why did you think that was an I? Okay? Walk through the role play, lots of fun. Now that we know how to start recognizing the behavior tendencies of others, now we can consider How do I communicate with other people? And that's the last bit, style flexing. How do I understand other people? And then shape my language so they can hear me. This is not for the other person. So often we think, well, I do that for that D. I'm an S. I'm going to flex for the D. No, you're flexing for you because frankly, Ds can't hear us when we're communicating from our natural place. I's can't hear C's when they're communicating from their natural place. For others to understand and work together, we style flex. At critical moments, when stakes are high and potentially emotions are high, it's not all the time. And then we have a scenario that's kind of a fun one. Take time with slide 45, walk them through. And the last two slides, 46, is how am I going to apply this? And then discussing it with the person next to them. Okay, that's DISC in a nutshell. I hope that helps you understand the intentionality of the flow, the design, setting understanding, setting context, going deeper, giving some experience, giving time to process. Any questions about the 40-foot view?
Hi, this is Lauren Cavers. I do have a question, and I know it came up in one of my classes. Do you have any strategies or resources that you can share with the group if we have certain individuals who are upset with the results of their disc?
It's a great question. What do we do when someone has a problem? What's the first thing you do when someone has a problem?
You go into the box with them.
And what do you do when you get in that box?
You want to help them get out of the box.
And what's the most helpful thing you could do?
Listening.
Listen. You're listening. Listen. Let them work it out. Let them vent. Let them process out loud at you. Don't solve it by saying, oh, okay, well, why don't you take it again? Do not defend the tool. You don't need to. Let them work through. And after they are through, when they get to a stopping place, ask them to stay with us, to have patience, to circle and highlight, and we're going to ask you to share your report with someone who knows you well that you really trust. Because I can't say, yes, you're right, no, you're wrong. Tell them everyone's going to share this with someone they know and trust. And tomorrow, we'll talk about those outcomes. Listening is always the first tool out of your bag. The number one behavior tendency that asks to retake the disc because it is wrong is, anyone want to take a guess?
This is Lisa. D's?
No, surprisingly.
Really? Okay.
D's kind of go, it's wrong, done.
Is it C?
It is C's all day long.
Wow, I wouldn't have guessed that.
Very interesting.
And when I'm thinking back, this is Lauren again. When I'm thinking of back to the example that I referred to in my class, I'm wondering is there ever a point, or what's, I guess, the threshold of having that conversation as a group if somebody's upset, or if it gets to the point where it needs to turn to a one-on-one conversation, because that did happen in our class. where the person was
Yeah,
so upset and it just wasn't appropriate to continue that as an entire group.
you've got it, Lauren. Part of the walking around is to surface that sort of disruption one-on-one. And the end of it is to say, please share. You're going to share it tonight with someone you trust. Come back tomorrow. Let's discuss it. If it really still feels like this is not helpful at all, let's talk about you taking it again. I'm willing to let people take it again. It always comes out the same. However, we have to accept people where they are. You don't want to disrupt the entire class. One thing that can be helpful is for you to note, George is challenged with his. He's not finding a lot that if he feels fits. Tina, you've got a lot of highlights over there. How is this working for you? And you'll find people in the class who will say, it's spot on. It's like they read my mind. This is a fortune teller. How do they do this? Interesting. Those comments are going to calm down George. He's not going to be okay. He's still in the box. This is high-level facilitation skill, and that's why we will have a seasoned facilitator teach with you the first time. I have had people at the place where when I say, well, let's talk tomorrow, and they come back tomorrow and say, my wife agrees, this is totally wrong. All right, well, why don't we let you take that again? And then they can calm down enough to go ahead with class. For my other folks on the call, Angie, Mary Margaret, Sarah, Larry, anyone like to weigh in? This doesn't happen all the time, but it certainly is not unknown, not uncommon.
I'll go ahead and jump in. This is Sarah. I resemble that question, Lauren.
Good.
I remember
Really helpful.
very first facilitation class, and we had a gentleman that argued every point we made. And at the time, I was also teaching with a new facilitator candidate, and we fell into the trap of trying to convince and argue and outfact him. I'm a high C, so I'll outfact you any day of the week. And that I could see the whole class tanking. And I was so grateful that our credentialer actually took us aside on a break and just said to us, just cut it out. Just cut it out. He's in the box. He's in the box. He's going to be in the box for a long time. Just let him be in the box. And it was such a relief to just shift back into, I just have to acknowledge. I just have to acknowledge that he's struggling. I just have to acknowledge. I just have to acknowledge and acknowledge. And at the end of that class, he shared that he had some great takeaways and some things he was going to apply directly into his relationship with his son. So it's hard, man. It sucks. It sucks when they're up there challenging you and you're like, man, rely on those reflective listening skills.
It's really key. And work to think in your head, is this of benefit to the group and this person? Is there a place where it's no longer, where we need to move on? And then with love, with care, you ask, can you and I, as you were saying, Lauren, can you and I talk more about this at break? Because this is important between us, but I don't want to hold the whole class hostage. I think others are ready to move on. Are you okay with that? It's a high-level facilitation skill. But to Sarah's point, usually people that fight with you the most are the folks that take the most away. It's crazy, but it seems to be true every time. The ones I think they are not getting this at all. They don't even want it. Why are they here? And the last day they tell you some unbelievable story about a revelation in a relationship. So hang in there. Yes. Is this challenging? Yes. Respect your learners. Listen to them when they go in the box, when they show those signs of being upset. But don't let it hijack the class. And to Sarah's point, don't let it tank the class. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go on because I know Pete is ready to shoot me. Insights and instructions. Let's look at some of the tools that you have. Teaching arc, as I said, you're at zone 3, you're in zone 3. Some folks are going to go high there when this can't be me. I know as a high S, one of the things it said about me was has difficulty making decisions. And it was on the page, it says how others see you. And I'm like, are you kidding? I've been in leadership for decades. I make decisions. Took it home and my husband said, you worry about what everybody else is going to think about the decision. So yeah, you make them, and he's right. But I was getting a little up, just a little bit. It wasn't huge. But for the person that Lauren just described, they likely were pretty pushing 4 there. So recognize they should be disrupted. It's designed in, it's intentional. Your need is to listen, understand, and help the class teach each other. Okay, but for the rest of the day, it's really pretty straightforward, teaching, facilitating, doing the role plays. Frankly, I love teaching this module. It's got a lot of substance. You'll never know enough about DISC, so don't beat yourself up if you don't know everything. And feel free, when people ask difficult questions about the science of the tool, to let them know that you will check and get the answer. Don't make stuff up. You have resources. Contact me, contact Sarah. We'll contact Extended DISC. Before you teach this, go back and look at yours. Remember your experience. Also, you're going to get a spreadsheet that shows you who's in the class and what their DIS&C percentages are. Your logistics leader will be setting people up by DIS&C for the first day. You can understand if this class is going to be a quiet one who's just not saying out loud that they disagree, or a more talkative one who likely could be pushing back. When you look, I don't read everybody's profile. I do check the DIS&C, and full disclosure, I also look at the page with the arrow to understand anyone in the class that has a huge deviation. There, those long arrows that go 3, 4 are across the page. It's important.
Hi, Marcia. Just wanted to let you know we got 2 minutes left in the call.
2 minutes left. Okay, well, there you go. All right, this is about them, not you. Facilitate to them, give them time to read. As I mentioned before, scan. You've got to be all in. Don't be thinking about the next slide in this module. Be fully present. Allow the learner to be where they are and don't argue with them. Remember, this is a confidential tool. Share as much as they feel comfortable and no more. Okay, again, don't do words like all the D's are like this. Those who have a tendency, a D tendency. I'm not an S. I have tendencies. I have tendencies toward S. I make choices.